2 years ago, I woke up every day exhausted, unfocused, and with that horrible bloated feeling first thing in the morning. I worked out, ate right, and nothing changed. Until a friend asked me a strange question. What if the problem isn't what you eat, but when you eat? Today, I'm going to show you hour by hour what happens inside your body during intermittent fasting, and why this process can be one of the most powerful ways you have to lose fat, gain mental clarity, and live longer. So go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There's a popular piece of advice almost everyone has heard. Eat every 3 hours. Keep your metabolism revved up. Don't let your body go into starvation mode. This idea is so deeply rooted in fitness culture that it became dogma. It became unwritten law, and most people follow it without questioning because it seems to make sense. If you don't eat, your body collapses. It burns muscle, shuts everything down, slows down. It seems logical. The problem is, it's not true. This logic stems from a superficial interpretation of how metabolism works, and it ignores a mechanism that human physiology developed over millions of years of evolution. A mechanism that wasn't created to make you suffer, but to keep you functioning, sharp and efficient during periods without food. We are the only species on the planet that believes it needs to eat 6 times a day to survive. And we are also the most obese, most inflamed, and most insulin-resistant species in history. This connection is no mere coincidence. When you eat, your body releases insulin. That's the first thing that needs to be clear. Insulin is a storage hormone. It takes the glucose that entered your bloodstream from your meal and pushes that glucose into your cells. Part of it will become immediate energy. Part goes to the liver, and the excess, what's left over, goes straight to adipose tissue, where it's converted into fat and stored. As long as insulin is circulating, fat burning is blocked, not reduced, blocked. Hormone-sensitive lipase, which is the enzyme responsible for mobilizing fat from your adipocytes, is inhibited by insulin. You literally cannot burn significant fat while you have elevated insulin in your blood. This is not opinion, it's basic biochemistry. Now, when you stop eating, insulin levels begin to drop. In the first 4 to 6 hours, your body is still using glucose. Hepatic glycogen, that carbohydrate reserve stored in your liver, is being drained to keep your blood sugar stable. You don't feel hungry yet. You don't feel anything special. The system is just consuming what's left over from the last meal. Between the 6th and 12th hour, the liver begins to empty its glycogen reserves more intensely. Insulin is low. Glucagon, which is the hormone opposite to insulin, starts to rise. It signals to adipose tissue that it's time to release free fatty acids into the bloodstream. The body isn't in full fat-burning mode yet, but the transition has already begun. And then the 16th hour arrives. This is where the game changes. With hepatic glycogen near zero, the liver begins to convert fatty acids into ketone bodies. This is one of the most sophisticated adaptations of human metabolism. Ketone bodies, especially beta-hydroxybutyrate, become the preferred fuel for the brain, heart, and various other tissues. And it's not a second-rate fuel. In many respects, it's a superior fuel to glucose. Beta-hydroxybutyrate generates more ATP per unit than glucose. It produces fewer free radicals in the process. And it has signaling properties within cells that go far beyond simply providing energy. A study published in the journal Cell Metabolism, led by researcher Verdin, showed that beta-hydroxybutyrate directly inhibits HDAC enzymes, which are responsible for suppressing genes linked to cellular protection against oxidative stress. In other words, going 16 hours without eating isn't just about burning fat. It's about activating cellular protection mechanisms that most people keep dormant their entire lives. But there's something even more important happening at this point: autophagy. This is the mechanism that fascinates me most in all of fasting physiology, and it's the least understood by most people who talk about the subject. Autophagy literally means self-eating, and that's exactly what your body does in a controlled and intelligent way when nutrient levels drop for long enough. When insulin is low, when mTOR, which is the cell's nutrient sensor, is suppressed, the cell activates an internal recycling process. It begins to identify misfolded proteins, damaged organelles, dysfunctional mitochondria, and literally breaks them down, recycles the components, and generates energy from this process. It's a deep cellular cleansing that your body cannot perform while you are in a fed state. Yoshinori Ohsumi won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2016 specifically for unraveling the molecular mechanisms of autophagy. The scientific world recognized that this process is central to longevity, to the prevention of neurodegenerative diseases, to immune regulation, and to metabolic health. And it begins to be significantly activated approximately between the 12th and 16th hour of fasting. 16 hours is not a random number. It's the point where multiple mechanisms converge simultaneously. So let me tell you what I believe, and this is a position I defend based on what physiology shows. The eat every 3 hours culture wasn't built on solid science. It was built on a misguided interpretation of some studies on diet-induced thermogenesis. And it's solidified within a market that profits when people eat more, buy more supplements, and believe they need constant assistance to function. The human body doesn't need food every 3 hours. It needs periods without food to perform functions that simply don't happen in the fed state. Now, specifically regarding visceral fat, which is the fat that surrounds abdominal organs and is most associated with cardiovascular risk, insulin resistance, and systemic inflammation, it is not primarily regulated by caloric deficit. It is primarily regulated by insulin. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine compared continuous caloric restriction with intermittent fasting and found equivalent or superior reductions in visceral fat in the fasting group, even with similar total caloric intake. The difference wasn't in the calories. It was in the periods of low insulin. This has enormous implications. If you are eating in a caloric deficit but eating 6 times a day, your insulin never drops enough to efficiently mobilize visceral fat. You might be weighing less on the scale and still accumulating the type of fat that matters most clinically. 16 hours. This number represents the window in which insulin is low enough, hepatic glycogen is sufficiently depleted, beta-hydroxybutyrate is circulating, autophagy is active, and the entire organism is operating in a metabolic state that most people never experience because they were taught to be afraid of it. I'm not telling you that fasting is the only answer. I'm telling you that understanding what happens inside your body when you stop eating for long enough completely changes the conversation. You stop making decisions based on fear of catabolism and start making decisions based on real physiology. Biology will always trump trends. It will always trump slogans. It will always trump popular advice that never had a scientific basis to exist. What happens in your body during those 16 hours without eating is not in vain. It's rebuilding. It's cleansing. It's the most efficient and evolved version of your metabolism functioning exactly as it was programmed to function. The question is whether you will let it happen.